We are pleased to have with us Mr. Alex Andarakis, Managing Director of Andarakis Advisory Services and Senior Global Advisor to McKinsey and Company. He has lent his expertise and leadership to leading global organizations across the Middle East region, including Emaar Properties, Unilever, Aujan Industries, as well as the Ministry of Culture of Saudi Arabia. We are honored to invite Mr. Alex, our first international keynote speaker, to the stage to share his thoughts on transactional, true transformational, rethinking the mall experience. Please put your hands together for Mr. Alex.
Thank you very much, everyone, and I'm really pleased and very honored to be here today. So thank you to TerraBiz and to the Chain Store Association. Having listened to everyone this morning, one of the key things that strikes me, first of all, I find it very hard to be behind a lectern, so I want to walk, but I'll start. The first thing that strikes me is the attitude is there. Now, the real question is, how do we match the behavior with the attitude? And I think that becomes the most important thing. I've been lucky enough the last 35 years, having lived in UAE, living in Saudi Arabia, also spent some time in Turkey and Russia. And one of the things that inspires me the most is the vision. And today's session that I want to run with you is really about how do we set the why, the what, and the how is when you start to structure trying to deliver against a vision. And I think that's something that, listening again, I go back to it, the attitude from the speakers today has been one of, we want to achieve this. The question becomes, how do you match the behavior? How do you put the tactics in place year in, year out to be able to deliver against that vision? And that's really going to be the challenge. And today's session for me is about how do we create the right strategy? How do we go from this transactional, functional scenario into a transformational mode? And I think it's important as we go through that, and yesterday we had the opportunity to have a walkthrough in one of the malls, and I see you're here today, where shopping is really just the beginning. And when I say that, and I know Rafaela is here from his ex-MAF, many years ago I was offered the opportunity to do something for the Mall of Emirates, and the campaign was Mall of Emirates, where shopping is just the beginning. That's how you move away from functionality and transactional to experiential, right? And that's what makes malls something more than a place to go and buy stuff. It's about how do I go there to experience it. So strategy is a very simple philosophy. Strategy is where you focus your efforts to achieve your goals. It's all about where do I want to play and how will I win. And yesterday in the one-on-one sessions we had with some of the retailers here, we talked about, when you start to set strategy, the really important thing is you can't win everything, right? But you need to understand what are the things I've got to do to be able to compete, and then what is that one special thing that I need to be able to pull out of my strategic menu that's going to give me the chance to win. That's what strategy is. Then we look at something that's very close to my heart. I spend a lot of time in my consulting life around the concept of placemaking. And having been an urban planner myself, placemaking is an approach to urban planning and design. It focuses on how people use a space. But more importantly, it's more than just the physical structure of the building. And let's look at some of the issues, and I think some of it's already been mentioned today in terms of the face of retail in Pakistan. It's the third largest contributor to the Pakistan economy, so it's extremely relevant. We talked about and we heard that it's between 18 to 20% contribution to GDP. We also understand that there are key drivers of retail in Pakistan. So whether it's socioeconomic drivers, whether it's infrastructure, or whether it's technology, these all intersect to play a role on how do you build this industry and how do you build this sector in Pakistan. We also understand that the high inflation rates and economic challenges impact consumer buying power, and that's something that came out yesterday as well very clearly. But whilst there's a high demand of malls, there's actually a limited supply of them. And I think the other thing is how do we define malls? And a little bit later, I've got a very quick couple of slides that talk about the type of mall you can have. You know, I spend a lot of time working in Thailand. I spend a lot of time with real estate developers and mall operators in Thailand. And some of the best malls in Bangkok are actually around train stations. They're transit-oriented malls. They don't have to be 50, 60, 70,000 square meters, but they've got to play a role. And obviously digital shopping is boosted by the 180 million cell phones in Pakistan. And we started to hear a lot about the digital space here. But why are malls going to have a role to play? This is about safety and security. You're in a controlled environment. It's about how do I deliver on entertainment? How do I look at climate? It's got climate control, so you're away from the heat, the dust, the wind, right? It's convenient because everything, you can shop everything under one roof. And we talked about those socio-economic drivers before, on how people's values and behaviors start to change. So, how do we push these boundaries in Pakistan? How do we look at integrating physical and digital? And I think there's going to be a lot of sessions a little bit later today. And ultimately, how do we deliver across both urban and rural areas? But at the core of it, it's this new economy. It's the youth that are going to shape the future of retail. If we plan retail based on where we are today and what it's been in the past, we're going to fail, right? Yesterday I heard so many times people say, no, it's got to be Pakistani brands, they have to be Eastern in philosophy. Yes, that's tradition, that's history, right? But the youth coming through today, their exposure to the global media and global trends and global fashion is different. If you plan like you planned yesterday, you will fail. Right? So that acknowledgement that the world is going to be different, stuff in Pakistan is going to be different because our youth generation are going to want Western-influenced fashion. They're going to want leisure entertainment that's different to what their fathers or grandfathers had. We need to plan for that to be successful. Right? Who would have imagined, 25 years ago, somebody had a ski slope inside a shopping mall? So I want to talk a little bit about, we're going to hear a lot about customer experience a little later, but I want to talk about understanding behavioral science, right? And behavioral science in terms of the impact it has on what we do in the future. And there's no doubt that the way we live and behave has completely changed. COVID accelerated that way that we behave. And really important to this are the changes in our behavior. People are yearning for experience. So that's important. There's a merging of our work and life environments. We've got hybrid working models. People want this escapist lifestyle. People want to connect with nature. They want to go back to nature. Sustainability has become more and more important to them. And more important, people want to live in the present. They don't want to live in the future. So it's about the now, right? And I think a lot of these behavioral changes drive overall well-being. And you hear now the amount of people talk about physical and mental well-being and the importance of mental well-being. So there's great behavioral changes to people. So I'm going to keep moving. And it's really about how do we create this purpose, what people value most. And I think the really important aspect of this is everything has to be experiential. Aspiration has to be within reach. We need to be able to integrate well-being. ECG dimensions become a very important component. It's a must now. Convenience and community. And making purpose a necessity. And I think when we go from that, people want to interact with brands and they want to interact with environments that emulate their own values. And we've seen it with a lot of global brands that have transitioned to what become these lifestyle brands. And I've got a couple of examples here of the brands that have moved. Right? Shopping center and retail mall guiding principles then have to follow that concept of what's the strategy and what is the key aspects of my placemaking. And it's all about customer centricity, and we heard about that earlier. It's about the pursuit of excellence. It's about the tech agility. It's about transparency and transaction. And we heard earlier about the tax aspect. It's about how do we continue to evolve a tenant mix. One of the things that people say to me is during the time of the Dubai Mall, it was ambitious. Again, the vision. How do we build a 1 million square meter retail mall? At the time, food and beverage as a percentage of tenant mix was 14%. That was the standard. 14%. The chairman of Emaar said, we're going to go for 40% food and beverage. Why? People stay in our mall longer. They spend more. It's more than shopping. A fact, in the Majid Al Futtaim malls that they have Carrefour, sorry, Raphael, I'm going to take one of your... For every person that visits Carrefour, 58% of them buy something else inside the mall. Okay? Buy something else. The majority of them that are buying something else is they're having a meal in the mall. They're having coffee, they're having cake, they're having lunch, right? So it's more than shopping. And the chairman of Emaar at the time, when he said, we're going to go for a much higher than normal standard F&B, is because this is more than shopping. This is a lifestyle destination, right? We need to offer people everything. The CX design, so how do we want the customer to experience it? For most of you, and again, I was lucky enough to be involved in the Dubai Mall, the biggest single investment we made from a marketing perspective was the fountain, the dancing fountain. And it's free. People can watch that for free. It costs a lot of money. But what it does, it brings 50 million people a year to Dubai Mall who spend money eating, drinking, shopping, skating, playing games, right? Loyalty is important, and you see the importance now of loyalty programs coming through. On country strategy, and I'm not going to go through my full presentation today, but on country strategy, yesterday, I listened to a lot of this, and I'm currently going through this in Saudi Arabia with a lot of the retail industry strategy for Saudi Arabia. It's very much around how do we look at tourism development as a key driver? How is retail going to play its role in driving tourism into our country, into our city? How do we look at economic diversification in terms of industry verticals? And how does it fit into the national vision? How do we grow brands? How do we create SMEs? How do we create these global entities, these local entities that we can take global? So retail becomes a very important component of a country strategy. And that's why we need to define the why. Now, I started by saying our strategy is about why. Once we understand why we exist, we need to define what are we going to do. They're our tactics. And then the third part is when we decide what we're going to do, then it's how are we going to do it. Right? Now, Dubai Mall was built on the process and the thinking, the why was we want to create the world's most valuable square kilometer in the world. Big ambition, right? But that was a reason why it was there. The why. Within the world's most valuable square kilometer. Mall of Emirates, it's a wonderful story as well, because you look at why, and their why is to create the world's first shopping center resort in the world. Right? Roshan Front is to become the gateway to Riyadh's lifestyle. And one close to my heart as well, but it's from my home city in Sydney, is a Queen Victoria building, which was an old train station that was converted into something beautiful now as a shopping mall above a railway station, right? And that was all about the heritage, resilience, culture, and progress in Australia. So you walk around there and you see things that are more than 200 years old in that building. It's beautiful, heavy on food and beverage, and also luxury fashion. And as you get closer and closer to the train station, it becomes the everyday shopping. And the last one also that I want to just quickly show you is GUM Mall in Moscow, right? Again, beautifully repurposed project where it's a monument to architecture. It's part of the Russian history, symbol of Moscow, place for the people and the city life. It's a must-see place when you're in Moscow, right? Again, high fashion. But all of these malls had a why they exist, right? So whether you're a large mall, medium-sized, smaller mall, you have to have the reason, why do I exist, right? So I'm going to stop my presentation there because I know we're running behind and we've got a couple of presentations to catch up to. But to move from transactional to transformational requires behavior change. It requires us to walk away from function only and focus on experience. It is more than shopping. Shopping is your right to compete. Your right to win is how do you get people to come here week after week after week? And that is and that's how you move from being a transaction, single dimension relationship into a transformational, multi-dimension relationship. And that's where the real test is going to be, because you may need to say, yep, I'm not going to have the revenue and turnover that I expect purely from my model I have today, because I have to invest in the model of the future, which requires investment, and it requires a little bit of being brave in how you structure your tenant mix, how you structure your marketing program, and what assets you put inside your malls or inside your big shopping centers that today may not have an existing demand. But it will be demanded by the youth in the future. So I'm going to stop there. Thank you very much.